that's the one where he fights terrorists, isn't it? And yeah, he like blows himself out of the prison and then he lands in like the desert. He used to supply weapons to all of the military people, right? And then he has like this epiphany where he's like, oh, can't do that anymore because my own weapons nearly killed me.
Do you remember the main villain at the end?
No.
You don't remember the guy in the giant Iron Man suit?
See, I'm thinking of like a giant mechanical rhinoceros.
That's Amazing Spider-Man 2. Sweet Jesus.
Now this one I again remember very little. For a lot of it he's lying on a hospital bed. I don't really remember why. And then he turns into the Hulk and then he destroys said hospital bed. Oh, and he has a love interest as well. And he's sexually frustrated. It's too much emotion for him. I don't remember the villain. Oh wait, no, that's right. The villain's like that army guy who like wants to weaponize him. Is that the one where he like kicks him in the face and he like launches into a tree? So I think that all I can remember about Iron Man 2 is that they go to Monaco. Tony was going through a bit of a crisis and decided that instead of letting his Formula One racer who was trained his entire life, Tony was like, oh, it can't be that hard. I know how to drive a car. And then just hopped on in. And then the driver was really angry about that.
You remember the villain? He had the
It's himself.
It's himself.
Oh, there's a guy with the mechanical arms.
Okay.
Tony was racing, and then the guy with mechanical arms was all like, I'ma rip stuff up. And then Happy was like, oh no, Tony.
So the only thing you remember about Iron Man 2 is that there's a racing scene and the dude with mechanical arms turns up and starts destroying cars.
Yeah.
That's fine.
He lands on Earth, and there's like an ancient ruin underneath him, and there's storm chasers, and then they stumble upon him, and they're like, oh, a crazy man. Better not get too close.
Remember about Thor's hammer?
Oh, it like lands somewhere else, doesn't it? And then they lock it up, and Thor's all like, no, that's my hammer. Oh, and then there's all that scientist bureaucracy where they're like taking her research. She's all like, no, it's my research. And they're like, too bad, it's ours now. Yeah, I don't really remember why Thor is on Earth. Or why they're being scientists. Oh wait, no, there's a big mechanical giant.
Alright, let's move on.
Sorry.
We've got enough here.
This is the one where we are introduced to Captain America, isn't it?
Yes.
And he's all like, I want to join the army. And everyone's like, no, you have thousands of things wrong with you. Why would we ever consider you? Stop applying. And then someone overhears him and goes, you want to join the army? I can get you into the army. Then they inject him. Oh, and then Peggy like freaks out because she's all like, oh, pecs. And then she does that weird like, oh, I'm gonna touch you. Oh, no. Oh, and then they don't use him like at all. And they just make him into war propaganda. And then, what's his face? Guy without an arm.
Bucky.
Bucky.
Who still has his arm in this movie, by the way.
He goes missing. And then Captain America's all like, oh no, my friend. Who cares about all these other soldiers that go missing daily? I care about this one soldier. And then he goes and finds him. And then he starts a riot. And that's the end.
That's about like halfway.
Oh.
It's like the midpoint.
Yes, that's right. And he like dove into the flames, didn't he? But then somehow Red Skull? Is that his name?
Yes.
He gets pushed into the flames.
No, he doesn't.
I thought that's where he died.
No! That's not the end of the movie! Stop thinking that's the end of the movie!
Oh, wait! The end of the movie, I remember now. He's like flying a plane and then he's talking to Peggy on some radio and he's all like, I'ma meet you here next Sunday and we're gonna dance. And then they don't dance because he decides to crash his plane into the ice. And that's the end.
Fuck me.
Ah, yes. They're in the sky, and there's an issue with one of the fans. Oh wait, no! It's the one where all of the aliens go! I don't remember why they were aliens, apart from that they just sort of appeared.
Who was the villain?
The aliens.
Who was their leader?
Loki!
Thank you.
That's right, because he went to Germany and he was all like, you must kneel before me, I'm going to be a dictator. And there was that one old codger who was all like, we have knelt to people like you in the past and it hasn't ended well. And this is where we see the Tesseract.
Yes!
With his star. Tony, as always, decides that he has to be the best. So he decides that he needs to sacrifice himself. So he takes up a grenade, bomb, I don't know what it was, and he flies up into the sky, into the hole. He just sort of chucks it up there and then everything explodes. Is that the one with like the giant rabbit thing that he gave Pepper?
Yes.
And then doesn't like his ex show up? And then while they're all being like, why are you here? What are you doing? His house explodes. And his suit malfunctions and it like throws him into a random town.
Do you remember anything about the Mandarin?
That's right. He was an actor. And they paid him to make all of these terrorist videos, being like, I'ma destroy everything. I remember at the end, they were at like the port and they were all fighting on shipping containers and things, and there was a lot of Iron Men. Oh, and that's where we meet Rhodey. Or at least he's in it.
He's been in all the Iron Man movies.
Good for him. Oh no. Wait, no, that's the one where she gets injured and then she's in like the medicine coffin. She then goes out of her medical pod and she tries to protect the queen? The queen dies. It was someone that wanted to take over Asgard. The ice giants?
That was the first Thor.
Oh. Wait, was it those fire goblins? It's Loki in some way, because it backfires on him. And then he's all like, wait, no, I don't want them in charge. And then he goes and helps Thor. She goes back to Earth. Thor is all like, I promise this time I'll be there. More empty promises from Thor.
Yeah.
Oh, that one's where he battles Bucky. And Hydra's the villain. Okay, this one's fairly easy. So there's a kid and his mum is dying and she gives him music. He doesn't want to see her die, so he runs outside and he gets abducted by aliens. And then he's an adult in space. And so he finds an orb thing and he takes it to this planet. And he's all like, do you want this? And the traders are like, no, I don't want this. So like, why don't you want it? And then just as he says that, someone tries and steals it from him. And then that's when we meet all of the other characters. And then they're in a prison, and then they break out of prison, and then they start a fight, and then they beat the main guy that's after the orb. That's where they do the dance battle, and the power of friendship cures everything. Now this is the one with the knockoff X-Men. Oh, and then Wakanda's king dies, no?
That's Civil War.
Well, Ultron is born, and he gets put in one of those medicine coffins too. And they grow him a skin, and he hacks into Jarvis. And then he's jealous of Thor's cape, so then he makes a cape. No, that's Vision. Vision is born. Ultron builds himself a body, and he hates Tony Stark. He decides to go to Sokovia, and he just lifts the whole town up. The Avengers are all like, no, there's people on that town. You're gonna kill them all. There's a train, and Scarlet Witch stops it, and Quicksilver is shot, and it's all very traumatic. Oh, okay, Ant-Man. So he's a convict, and he's all like, I'ma go straight now that I've finished up my prison. And then he can't get a job, and so then he turns to a life of crime. And so he burgles this person's house, and then this person is all like, hey, you want a job? You have to shrink down to an ant. Someone, bald guy, he wanted to shrink down people. But he didn't realise that the technology already existed. And so he was creating it from his own brain, which is pretty incredible, and he deserves some kudos. And so they fought him because he created small things. Oh, and then they traumatized a kid. Oh, this is the one where Tony Stark and Captain America disagree. Okay, so this is the one where he makes circles. So on this one, we find out who is Star-Lord's dad. and it turns out that it's a planet. He had kids with a whole lot of people because he wanted to pass on the planet gene, and none of his kids had it, and they were delivered by the scavenger that Star-Lord was raised by. Oh, his head gets like raised.
Are you talking about his fin?
And then the Guardians destroy his dad. Oh, and they pick up the Mantis lady. Oh yes, and then there's that whole thing about we don't deal with children, blah 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 blah. You'll never get a proper funeral, and then he dies, and then they give him a proper funeral, and it's all very touching. Oh, this is the one where it all ties back to Avengers, isn't it? And like there's that whole thing with the cleanup crew not keeping their contract, and so then they started making weapons out of the alien material that fell on New York. And Tony tries to be a parent and it doesn't work. Oh, they cut a ferry in half, that's right. Oh, and it turns out that the ringleader of that is Peter's love interest at school's dad. Oh, they try and rob Tony, and then Peter stops them. So Thor is kidnapped and he's forced to be a gladiator, and he fights the Hulk, and then somehow they escape along with Thor's kidnapper to Asgard, where they find Thor's sister trying to kill everyone, and there's a giant fire demon, and they evacuate everyone from the city, and we don't see where they end up. I really enjoyed Black Panther. They have power beads and they wear them and like make them do things, and so that's just one of the ways that Wakanda is super advanced, but they're hidden. They don't want anyone to know that they're advanced. So the king is dead, and what they do is they ask if any of the tribes want to challenge, and so then this guy challenges the son of the king of Wakanda, and he wins, and then he steals all of these flowers, and everyone's really angry at him. Oh, and then all of these gremlins attack the dome. No?
That's Infinity War.
Oh, they have to go and see the bear people and ask the bear people for help because they're like, this guy has stolen all of our flowers. I think that they have another challenge, and then the new king and the guy that stole all the flowers has a powwow in the head of a panther out of rock. Well, that's where everyone turns to dust. Pretty much the guy that offered Ant-Man a job didn't want his daughter being the Ant because he had a wife and they used to go small together, but on a mission she shrunk down too small, and he was all like, no, don't go small, you'll never come back. And that's what happened. And so they were all like, she might still be alive, just floating around in nanospace. Then the convict was like, I'll go get her. And he shrunk down really small and he found her. And then he brought her back and made her big again. There was something about a building and it got shrunk down and then it was on wheels, which really did my head in. Oh, and then it gets big in the water. So there's the race called the Kree, and they have these super warrior heroes. Captain Marvel, our title character, is one of those, pretty much. So the Kree fight this race of aliens called the Skrull, and they can transform, so shapeshift, into any other object or person or thing that they've seen. And somehow they all end up on Earth, the Kree, the Skrulls, and Captain Marvel. And then shenanigans ensue.
I hope that this is as painful for everyone listening as it was for me.
Aww.
Thank you for watching the show. If you enjoyed, please let us know. You can like and share, subscribe if you dare, and please leave a comment below.